Hello, hello, and welcome to, I think this is the fourth training that I'm offering as part of a 6 live series, launching my one-on-one business coaching, somatic business coaching, called Legacy, Sovereign Leadership Unleashed. And yeah, offering Black Friday / scholarship pricing through the end of this year. And yeah, really excited about it. So let's get into it. So as you know, I'm Isha. I'm a drama specialized leadership coach for disruptive, witchy entrepreneurs such as yourself. I also do relationship mentoring that I call Intimacy Alchemy. And if you're here, say hi. Let me know that you are live, just hashtag live, or just say hi, or hashtag replay. And I want you to leave comments, ask questions, let me know what is pinging for you, what's helpful, what you want to know more about. And I will come back to your questions when I'm off the live. Okay. So the outline for today is that I'm gonna talk about collective intimacy wounds. And when I talk about intimacy, as you know, what I mean is attachment, right? Our first relational schemas that we have with our caregivers, we have them with everything. Like those patterns get replayed in all areas of our life, and they get replayed in our business. So I'm going to talk about my LIVIDS framework, which is my framework for understanding collective conditioning, collective trauma. And then I'm going to talk about a way to do mindset that doesn't gaslight your body, because a lot of people who do mindset, they're really about like, don't feel the feelings, just get your mind on board. And I feel like that is actually really harmful for your body. And it creates a lack of safety in your nervous system. And then I'm going to share with you as the final piece, the first step in centering nervous system capacitation and successfully implementing mindset practices. Okay. All right. So last week we talked about the 5 intimacy wounds most likely to show up in your business. And these are the personal ones. I addressed attachment with caregivers. Well, a lot of like people don't really talk about this, but attachment also happens at the systemic level. This is something a lot of people miss, like I said, because we just don't think about systems very much. We still have this way of focusing on the individual, but we're not really missing the systemic lens. We're not really addressing the systemic lens is what I meant to say. And these attachment wounds that happen at the systemic level is where I see a lot of coaches, healers get stuck. Right? Because we're not clocking it, because, the reason you don't clock it is because you don't have a sense, or you don't remember a time in your life where you didn't have those voices in your head. And we attach to systems of disempowerment the moment that we're born. We don't have language. We don't have an understanding of what's happening. We just absorb it without a filter. And it enters us on the unconscious and subconscious level, right? And so this is like, we embody disempowerment in this way. And so it makes sense that when we move towards things that are empowering, those voices get really loud. And sometimes, right, they're attached to experiences in your body as well, depending on how you experience, how do you absorb them. So think about how you've internalized, for example, patriarchy. Think about, how it affects your relationship with your body, your sexuality, how it relates, like how it shifts or changes your relationship, how it's affected your relationship with food, how it affects how you view your worth as maybe a female person, or how there is like a built-in fawn response just by having grown up within a patriarchal system. How does How does the freeze show up in your interactions when somebody, makes a sexual comment towards you and you just get locked up because there's a freeze response attached to it? And think about how, patriarchy shows up in business in terms of using bro tactics in marketing to make people buy shit, like false urgencies, or really digging into pain points and things like that. Think about, for example, how you've internalized white supremacy culture with an emphasis on professional, like having to look apart, being appropriate, following the rules. And think about how your brain is biased to always look at what's missing, like what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, what can be improved on, instead of what's working, what's good, what's awesome right now. And also white supremacy shames sexual expression as part of your business image. Also think about how you've internalized capitalism in the ways you overwork or overfunction or hustle in your life. Think about how you extract from yourself when you overgive and you don't nourish yourself. You don't fill up the tank in the same way or to the same degree you give out. Sometimes in business, like with capitalism, even in the coaching industry, human beings are things with price tags on them, like, a 10K client. Well, yes, I understand that, but let's really honor all relationships, whether or not they involve an exchange of money. And I share all of these because these are ways I've had to shift my thinking and being in business. So yeah, I've caught myself in a lot of those same thoughts and patterns and dealings. And I've had to really correct myself and reprogram myself through the process. So, and like I shared before, these experiences with collective conditioning, they're internalized system that can happen sort of on the thought level, and they can happen on the level of sensation, right? And how you experience it is how you experience it. I come from a culture where there is a lot of somatization. And so there is more of sensation. We have a different permission of how to be in our bodies, culturally speaking. People who are, maybe white, grow up in the United States, grow up in an environment where there is a lot of appropriateness, or, grew up in in an environment where academics were very praised, intellectualism was highly praised. Well, you may experience it more on the thought level. So it's just, there's no right or wrong way. You're just going to experience it the way you experience it. So our unconscious beliefs, as you already know, they shape our behavior, right? They show up in the ways that you structure your business, in how you do business, and even how your relationship with your business, how you relate to business, because business is a long-term relationship, right? I often talk about business being a devoted lover that loves you back. And so we often don't notice the ways that, women often don't notice the ways they hold sexism. So we can be part of a marginalized group and still hold beliefs that are against our own group. Like I have had biases and stereotypes against my own people, and so this is the way that we internalize really harmful narratives about ourselves. And collective intimacy wounds are all the ways you've internalized limitations to your own growth. And it's essentially the collective shadow. It's essentially the collective shadow, and shedding them is part of the identity healing and nervous system capacitation that needs to happen for you to really receive in your business, for that business to love you back, right? You put in the work, but the work is also in allowing yourself to receive the abundance and feeling like you're worthy of it, like you're deserving, like you're not an imposter, you're not a fake, it wasn't a fluke, right? All of those things, all of those experiences are what make the path much more difficult. So I think of this as liberation work. Yeah. So I wanna share my story of leaving my program, my 4-year program in somatics, where, I had 4 years there and I really started to step into my leadership. And then I began to make moves towards entrepreneurship. Like, yes, I want to do like leadership work and this and that. And I could feel that it was like my brain was hitting a wall and I would hear the voices. And it was like, I felt it very much like a limitation, like a very strong felt experience. And I would get really, at some point I got really tired of, it was like a premenstrual moment where I was just like, fuck it. Like, what if I stopped believing these voices? What if I just stopped believing the stories? Because they keep repeating and I know they're not true. Like I have a deeper sense that they're not true. What if I stopped believing them? So I decided to stop believing them and see what would happen. And I started to categorize them. Oh, yeah, this is the same story as this one. Okay. And I started to sort of sort them. And when I would meet with clients, I would notice that those narratives would come up as well. And I was like, these are not personal to me. These are universal, right? I started to understand them as universal. And then I began to, I would meet up with there was like a somatic group, like a process group that I was part of. These were also people who were, making offers and stepping into their business in a different way. And they were freaking out because they would have these voices as well. And I was like, yeah, this is not something to be healed, right? And they were doing processes attempting to heal these parts of themselves. But I was like, yeah, they're not something to heal. They're not naturally occurring emotions. And so I began to understand them as something that is not me, that is outside of me. And I saw myself take really big steps forward in my business. I just began to accelerate in a way that I had never before, just because I was like clearing the space. Like, imagine you're driving on a road and each one of these thoughts is like a rock on the road. It's going to slow you down. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be hard. And the mindset work, right? Really understanding this concept and doing the mindset work is just like you're clearing the rocks and the car just goes. Okay. So this is why it's important. You want to accelerate your process. Like business is always going to be an investment of your time. It's always going to be about the long game, but it doesn't need to be really hard. It doesn't need to be grindy. It can be smooth and steady forward movement. So yesterday, for example, like we closed the Harmonize container. It was like a business incubator that I was running with my friend Pamela. And people were saying how incredibly valuable it was to have this framework of collective trauma. And they were able to release so much of the junk they thought they had to work through. And they were able to, rest without ruminating about survival fears. They weren't beating themselves up for not producing on demand. They were in self-acceptance for where they were on their journey in their business. And they were raising their rates without feeling like an imposter. So this is the internal work of uncolonizing your business that creates so much more ease. And when I talk about sovereignty and sovereign leadership, this is what I mean. Not being attached to the shitty narratives, not having an identity/ego attachment to the shitty narratives, and then being attached instead to your inner knowing, your intuition, your desire, your values, your needs, and taking action from that place. And the quiet moments in your business matter a fucking lot. Like you can make 100K, you can make 100K months, years, right? It doesn't matter. But I see people really burnt out, I see people suffering. You know, the money, you're going to get there, but why not get there in a way that feels so much better and so much more peaceful? So collective trauma is not where you want to be spinning your wheels, right? You want to put your energy elsewhere. Yeah. So here I'm going to present to you the 6 collective cock blockers to power with the corresponding practices that help dissolve them, like actually dissolve them. And I call them livids because that's my little acronym: lack, isolation, victimhood, imposter, doubt, and shame. And first I'm going to share what they are, and then I'm going to come back and share the practices that help me shed them. So the first is, let me take a drink of water. So the first is lack. So this is this idea that you're not right in some way. You're either not enough or you're too much. And sometimes it can be like simultaneous. And it's like, okay, well, what is it then? You're just not right. And this is often a result of internalized capitalism showing up in the form of the inner critic. So we come online, for example, and we want to express our real selves, and we think, oh no, that's too much. Wow, no, that's going to really put off my viewers. Or if I say this, if I really share my opinion, that's going to be too much, right? Big energy people often have this experience, and we also have this feeling of not being enough. I'm not this enough, or I'm not that enough, or, this internalized, like a void of sufficiency. So the second one is isolation. And this is the belief that, or this is like the absence of the belief that you're inherently divine, right? Or that you don't belong in certain groups, or that you're an outsider. This experience of isolation, I feel like, happens also, like it's kind of a trick, because we feel like these experiences we have as humans are just us. And so we're looking outside of ourselves, and we're looking at other people, and it's like, why do they have it together? And that's a fucking lie. Like it's always messy. Like it's messy for all of us. We just, we have a different capacity to hold the mess, right? That's nervous system capacitation. Like, yes, the mess is here. It's always going to be here, but it's about capacitation. But we, in the place of isolation, we often don't share our experiences because we believe we're alone in them. And we also feel separate from our worthiness, our divinity, our perfection, right? This is what it's about. So the third one is victimhood, V for victimhood. And this is where I call it collapsed authorship, right? Victimhood is like this power under strategy manifesting in collapsed authorship, which keeps you from exercising your own agency, right? It's like, maybe you blame life for certain things, or you blame circumstances for your misfortune without owning your responsibility in it, right? Like, yes, shit happens, but where do I have agency? Life can be really shitty sometimes. Like, things happen and you don't want them to happen. They just happen. And still, even under really difficult, crappy circumstances, you can make decisions that feel empowered. And for a long time, I did feel like a victim, and it was from a place of like colonialism. Like in a system of colonialism, you don't have a vote and you don't have a voice, quite literally. So victimhood is something that I'm really, really familiar with, and deciding and taking action feels really, really good right now. Really empowering. The fourth one is the second I for imposter. And this is an experience of inauthenticity or unworthiness. And feeling like an imposter, especially as a person of color, is a product of whiteness and patriarchy. It's not a syndrome. And it's like, it's the belief that we have to hide unwanted or unacceptable aspects of our experience. That's what produces the feeling of being an imposter. Yeah, it's sort of a performance-y. It's kind of performance-y. So the fifth is doubt. And this is when you question your inner reality, right? Or you question your knowing what you know. Our collective brainwashing is kind of like having a narcissist. It's kind of similar to having a narcissist in your life. Like you gaslight your experiences, you gaslight your wisdom, your knowledge, and in turn, like we deny our internal experiences. This is how we disconnect from our own intuition and wisdom. Self-doubt is something that really, I'm sure that, we all experience this. I think this has been one of the heaviest ones for me, is not only questioning my inner reality, really questioning what I know, and by not moving from that knowing, or not really feeling anchored in that knowing, not taking steps to create an offer like, yes, this is great, but being like, oh, I don't know if this is good, and and spinning my wheels that way. So the last one is shame, or making yourself wrong. It's like this this feeling of inherent badness or wrongness, and it often manifests as self-correcting or editing or self-monitoring, and it affects everything from like how you show up, how you work, how you play, if and when you allow yourself to rest, what emotions you allow yourself to feel, and when. Shame is basically the anti-permission to be. And one thing that is really, really important for you to know about shame is that shame is not a feeling. If you take anything from today's teaching / class, shame is not a feeling. Shame is an experience. Shame is an experience that's designed to control. It's designed to control your expression. And I think in the healing space, we often get taught to, we get invited to sit with your emotions and be with your emotions. And I say, yes, be with them, relate to them, love on them. But livids, and especially shame, are not naturally occurring experiences. They're only naturally occurring is because we're all experience collective conditioning. That's the only reason they're universal, but they're not universal like inherently to our humanity. They've been, let's say, artificially added to the human experience. It's like everybody has red dye, red dye inserted in their bodies or something like that. I mean, that's a weird example, but I'm just thinking about it from the organic versus not organic preservatives. All right, so I'm going to go back and talk about the practices, and the practices are really like, practices are really important. Rituals are really important because think about it. You practiced being this way. You practiced through, you repetitively practiced being demure or small or, right, shrinking your power. That's a practice. So each of these is a practice to undo the old ways of being in your body. So for the lack, for the first one, the not enough, too much thing, engage a practice of sufficiency, right? Instead of focusing on what's wrong and on what's needing improvement, focus on what's working. What about your fine ass self can be celebrated, bragged, or cheered on? And you want to celebrate the really small things, the things that you tend to gloss over, the things that you tend to think of as like not important because you've minimized them, because you've made them less worthy, those are the ones that you want to celebrate really big. You want to celebrate like the messy moments. And this practice of celebration can create a feeling of confidence, abundance, and sufficiency. Like you can feel your body filling up. I had somebody on a coaching call recently where they were like celebrating, and they actually said that they experienced like the abundance coming in and sort of pressing up against the part that was like scarcity, lack, and it was like pushing out the old programming. That is how they experienced it in their body. So it is very powerful. The second practice to help with isolation is a practice of connection. I want you to think of, when you think about intimacy, I want you to think of connection being available everywhere and in every moment, right? Isolation keeps us separate. So connection is the medicine. So whether it's through meditation, prayer, divination, altar or ancestor worship, crystal spell casting, nature hikes, connection to universal energy, or the quiet place inside of you, or even other people, this is where you find connection. This is where you are not alone, where you are connected to some sort of divine source, something bigger than you. And this can happen, right? Like with people, but I'm really talking about a spiritual connection and feeling that the spirituality, that the God self within you. So for victimhood, obviously, because it's about collapsed authorship, the practice is deciding. Sometimes I have clients go through their day and name out loud all the things they're deciding. Like, I'm deciding to put this letter in the mail today, and I'm deciding to put this lotion on my body, just to kind of get them to be aware of how many decisions they make in a day and to feel really empowered with those decisions, and then to make bigger decisions. So yeah, I just recognizing that you have choice in every moment about how to respond what's happening in your life. It redirects your authorship back to you, right? Like even when, like I said, shit's blowing up, it's like, well, how can I respond to this in a way that would feel really good, or that would be helpful, or that would maybe set boundaries for myself if that's what I need. Remember, you have the power to decide something, anything in every moment. So for the imposter, the practice that I promote, let's say it that way, is a practice of truth. When you feel like a fake, which is what, the imposter feels like, when you tell the truth, it dissolves the fakeness. It's just real, right? Like, this is just who I am. This is just what is. And there's it just takes the varnish off. It pulls down, the curtain. It pulls down the veil that is hiding. And oftentimes it's the truth that we have in our heart that feels the most vulnerable. That is the truthiest truth. That really affirms and validates your own reality. Like, this is what it's like for me to be a non-binary person, or this is what it's like for me to, step into this new arena of, whatever, just to name the truth, like the deeper truth that, is maybe edgy and vulnerable, but it's like, when you say it, it's just like, oh, there it is, it's done. And for doubt, engaging in a practice of trust is very helpful. Obviously, trust is the goal, but the antidote is to radically and faithfully believe what you feel in your body, what you sense in your body, right? The emotions that you have, to just believe them, even when it doesn't make sense, or when it goes against, convention, when it goes against the popular culture. Just believe yourself. Just kind of like, and I'm not talking about like the voices in our head, but like the deeper experiences in your body, like just believe those experiences, like the iffy feeling you have when this particular person walks in the room. What if you just believed that? What if you just allowed yourself to go with, those intuitive hunches, maybe little ones at first, ones that are maybe like not high risk, and then begin to make bolder moves based on that deeper knowing, that deeper sense, and that builds trust over time in your body. So the last practice is for shame, which, makes yourself wrong. You want to engage a practice of radical permission, right? So of course the antidotal practice would be that. Make everything about you right. Practice giving yourself to feel, move, think, create, fuck, love, rest, play, and work based on your internal needs and your desires, exactly how it feels right to you. Like you're not questioning yourself, you're not making it wrong. You're like, no, I need to rest now, so I'm going to rest. And, letting it be exactly what it is. And of course, when we practice radical permission, some of the voices, like when expressing my sexuality was one thing, that expressing my sexuality online in my particular way. I'm not doing it as much now because it doesn't feel like as much of an edge for me. But, last year and the year before, I was doing it a lot more. And that felt really right to me. And it felt really wonderful to feel like I was expressing it in my unique way. So that was really a wonderful growth experience. All right. And I'm seeing that there's lots of comments here that I'm excited about and I want to get back to. So I want to share with you as a final piece here, the first step in body-based business mindset that will expand your nervous system capacitation, that will accelerate you on your process. And it is cultivating the observer self. So when I talk about an observer self, it's just like you want to just have an internal witness. And the way that I imagine it is just like I have someone sort of floating above here, sort of looking into my brain and body and sort of kind of like, oh yeah, I'm noticing that you're feeling such and such, or yeah, wow, your brain is speeding up really fast, and just noticing what my experiences are without judging them, without needing them to be different, just observing from a place of curiosity. And so what this observer self does, when this observer self gets really strong, it just becomes very just neutral. And it begins to create a separation between who you are at the ego level and what thoughts are connected to the livids, right? It starts to like, oh yeah, I'm noticing I'm having a thought that I'm too much. And so the thought goes, or like I categorize it, oh yeah, it goes into the lack bucket, into the livids bucket under the subcategory lack. And when that happens, I am able to detach from it. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's not something that's mine. I can toss it in the garbage. It's just filed here in another room, but it's not in my house. It's sort of like in a box outside. Think of this a little bit like having boundaries. And when I talked earlier about the system being a narcissist, you don't want that fucker living in your house, okay? So you don't want them living in your brain. So one of the mindset practices that I do is, when I have this observer self, I am sort of someone that is watching over a living room. And when one of these thoughts comes in and parks themselves in the middle of the rug in the living room, I say like, oh, hi, I see that you're here. You're going to need to get up and leave. You're not welcome here. And so I escort them out of my living room, which is my brain, and they leave. So this is one of the many ways that I do mindset work. And you can do it, you can microdose your mindset throughout the day. Again, choosing the thoughts that you want to have, practicing doing the practices that are actually going to dissolve the lipids from your system. And one thing that I've noticed, that when I stopped believing these thoughts, what started happening in my body is that I began to release it. So there's this, because these things are collective, the way they shake out in our bodies can be very deep, because they're deeply embedded in our cellular knowledge, because also ancestral. Our ancestors also grew up with these collective beliefs. And so, I've talked about, I think I maybe have talked about mindset here, but mindset here is like, I think about mindset as like the coat hanger. And when the coat hanger is sort of like, it's strong, it holds the structure. And the body is sort of the piece of fabric that falls off or that hangs off the hanger. And so that can be sort of flappy and fluid, but the hanger holds its shape. And so you want your mindset to hold its shape, to really like be focused on the beliefs that you want to believe, the beliefs that feel good and that are aligned with your vision. And then your body will start to it'll start to naturally vomit what it doesn't want, because your body doesn't naturally hold on to shit that is not theirs. So you may experience tremoring, right? Or if you may notice like more intense sensation, and you may need to like do breath work or like move your body in certain ways, or like vocalize as a way of like kind of helping it along to get out of your body. So that's where the body listening comes in, really like attuning to the sensation and having like, sometimes, the sensations that we feel in our body, they don't have a name. We like to say, oh, I'm feeling fear. Well, do you know it's fear? Well, what does fear feel like? Sometimes it's excitement, sometimes it's something else, but we tend to like put a label on it, and then we think we know what it is. Allow sensation to just be sensation. And when you do that, when you allow sensation to just be sensation, you can sort of move it through your body without being too concerned about labeling it. It's not really helpful to label it sometimes, because that's often sort of how like mindset works in a top-down kind of way. So this observer self is the first step. And it helps distinguish between what's you and what's not you, right? So you can create a healthy separation between the thought and yourself, which is the core of who you are, your spiritual core, or your authentic self, right? You have agency and choice here. And this empowers, like when you decide what you're going to believe, this empowers and activates a healthy fight response that is often shut down and repressed in most people, especially those socialized as female. A lot of people socialized as female have a deactivated fight response. And we need healthy fight energy in order to be in our business, in order to decide, in order to make moves. We have to have that agency. We have to have that drive. And often it's a little bit like, it's a little collapsed. And so these practices help activate that healthy fight energy that is going to move you forward in your business. Okay. So that is it for today. I'm going to stop here. I'm so excited to get to your questions. And I will see you next week. All right. Bye-bye.